Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. And before I talk about the ongoing fighting that is taking place, and there are some very serious battles that are taking place as we speak. I would like to talk about first how dictators, how despots are able to retain power. And in the case of Eritrea, and more importantly, in the case of the former state of Ethiopia, with the warlord Abiy Ahmed running the country, or parts of the country, it is very apparent that both of these despots, Isaias Afwerki in Eritrea, and the growing despot Abiy Ahmed in the former state of Ethiopia, are using war as a means to stay in power. This is not uncommon. This is not something that is new to the world, but is very common. We have seen it time and time again. And because of internal strife, because of dire economic situations, because of internal conflict, and understanding now, especially in terms of the former state of Ethiopia, with the growing unpopularity of Abiy Ahmed, that and obviously Isaias Afwerki, that they are now turning to the use of protracted war as a means to stay in power. We're seeing large-scale conscription taking place inside both the former state of Ethiopia and Eritrea. Just when you thought that it was not possible to conscript anymore, they are continuing to conscript even elderly men now inside of Eritrea. Their gross domestic product is probably 50% of which is now supporting the military infrastructure of Eritrea. Not a wealthy country, very incredibly poor country, and most of its resources are being utilized by the military and the regime security forces, which keeps Isaias Afwerki in power. And now we have this very close relationship with Isaias Afwerki, this dictatorial despot in Eritrea, now becoming very cozy with Abiy Ahmed inside of the former state of Eritrea. Now, they have continued to prosecute this war, and we are now seeing renewed military activity directed towards the Tigray region. We have seen a large number of Eritrean forces now cross into the Tigray region. This was done before, and now we're seeing it again. And due to some of the ongoing fighting that is taking place, and especially some of the very serious casualties that have been taken by the Eritrean military, especially just to the north of Shire, we are now seeing these large-scale conscription efforts being instituted. Basically, they are scraping the barrel inside of Eritrea to try and prop up their military, and at the same time draw pressure away from the political apparatus, the regime of Isaias Afwerki. And basically, Isaias Afwerki, is staying in power through the use of his military, recruiting anybody and everybody into the armed forces of Eritrea. It is a very strange society, probably even more so in some aspects than what we're seeing inside of North Korea. But heavy fighting continues. We continue to see the Eritrean army in conjunction with the Abiy loyalist forces attempting a direct attack towards Shire. Right now, I have highlighted, I've put a little icon just to the north of Shire. This is Shire right here. This is the town. And the main efforts for some reason right now for the Eritrean military is to move down. They have possibly seized control of Adidaro. We know there has been very heavy fighting in these areas. It is possible that the Eritrean army has taken control of Adidaro. Now, you got to understand what's different about this renewed invasion versus the invasion that took place in 2020 is you now have a fully mobilized Tigrayan defense forces. And it does appear that, I'm going to go over here and hit the road map where you, the viewer, can kind of see what the military of Eritrea is trying to do. And we'll minimize that. So they're coming down this this main road here from Denbe Bengul in Eritrea, and they're trying to navigate their way down and then eventually seize control of Shire. And this would be the gateway down the B30 towards east the central Tigray region and those northern cities such as Aksum, Adwa, and we would probably at some sort then see a renewed operation coming out of Dengolo in this area, and then north of Adigrat as well, if they are able to seize control of Shire. Now, it's been problematic. They have taken a lot of casualties in the ongoing fighting taking place near Adidaro, and it does appear that that is why we are now seeing some of these reserve call-ups inside of Eritrea, because they know it is going to be a very long and sustained fight with a lot of casualties to maneuver into the central Tigray region. Even Shire is not very mountainous. It is a larger city, and we'll have to see this time if the Tigrayan Defense Forces choose to fortify some of these cities and use these cities as defensive redoubts. I know the last time they moved into the hills, they allowed the Eritrean military, the Abiy loyalist army, to enter into some of these cities without a sustained fight, without fortifying these cities. We'll have to see if this time the Tigrayan Defense Forces choose to utilize the cities in terms of fortifying them and creating a situation where the Eritrean military would have to engage in bloody street-to-street, house-to-house fighting. We don't know if that will happen. In all probability, we will probably see the Tigrayan Defense Forces move back into the hills and then launch counterattacks on the rear columns of the Eritrean army, much like we observed in the 2020 invasion, which obviously did not turn out very well for the Eritrean army or the Abiy loyalist army as well. But to prevent an eventual drive on Mekelle and not having to take to the hills, it would probably be prudent for the Tigrayan Defense Forces to utilize some of these cities and towns and force the Eritrean army into bloody and sustained combat, where it could be possibly worn out and defeated inside of some of these cities. But we'll have to see what happens. But right now, it does appear that the Eritrean military is facing incredibly stiff resistance, even in this flat terrain near Adidaro. So we estimate that the Eritrean column, the Abiy loyalist column, is someplace just outside or very close to Adidaro, attempting to press its way towards Shire. But as I talked about just now, they're meeting very stiff resistance in the ongoing battles that are taking place. And as these lines continue to extend toward Shire, we will see those rear area columns being attacked by the TDF, and in an attempt to eliminate the logistical capabilities of the Eritrean army as it tries to move into the Tigray region. We continue to see very heavy fighting in the south as well. This is where the Tigrayan Defense Forces are acting more or less as a conventional fighting force. They still control Kobo. They are still outside of Weldia to the west and east of Weldia, almost besieging that city. And they don't appear to be, at least right now, withdrawing forces out of fear of a offensive campaign against Mekelle. They are still in the northern Amhara region. There does not appear to be a lot of concern about a move on Mekelle right now, so we're not seeing those forces being withdrawn back into the interior of the Tigray region. So that does say a lot right now in terms of what the TDF's concerns are. And right now, we're going to continue to watch the situation outside of Shire and see what occurs and see what happens. See if the Eritrean army is able to take control of Shire. It's only going to get tougher after that, as because the terrain gets a lot more mountainous. It is not very mountainous as you enter Shire. There are wide areas of very, very flat spaces that are ideal for the Eritrean army to maneuver with its motorized formations, trucks, tanks, armored fighting vehicles, what have you. And also using the drones provided by the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and some other allied forces that are allied with the Abiy loyalist government. But that is where we currently stand, and I wanted to bring up one other topic or discussion point before we depart for today. It is very interesting to see how much news and reporting is done about other conflicts. Serbia, Kosovo, direct NATO intervention, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, of course, massive amounts of press. The Eritrean invasion of Tigray, the genocidal act of completely besieging a region, blocking off all food and supplies, and killing masses through hunger. Perfectly okay. Do you see CNN talking about it? Not really. So very interesting to see what happens and how the media and certain governments react to conflicts around the world. And right now, you can barely find any information about this conflict in the mainstream media. Right now, it's all about, obviously, Ukraine. And I get that, two industrialized powers going at it. Then you have now you have the Azeris versus Armenia, and again, probably more news about that than what is happening right now in the former state of Ethiopia. And it's just not the former state of Ethiopia, like meaning this is just an internal conflict. You have external forces at work as well, as I just talked about. Eritrea is a separate state that has now invaded upon the possible request of Abiy Ahmed. So that's where it stands, and again, not a lot of information coming out of the media, and that is why a lot of folks turn to this channel and some other channels that are continuing to report on the ongoing coverage. So if it wasn't for independent media, you probably wouldn't hear about it. It just wouldn't be there. But it's happening, and it is prior to the Ukrainian conflict, is the largest war on the planet right now. In terms of manpower, I mean, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of troops now involved in this on all sides. So very, very large conflict that is taking place. Probably much bigger than people really understand or even realize. And case in point, inside of Eritrea, you have national conscription. Every fighting age male is now being conscripted into the armed forces. A lot of conscription going on inside of the former state of Ethiopia as well. and very interesting to see. But not a lot of coverage. But that's where we stand. We'll continue to watch, report, cover the ongoing situation. And as always, again, thanks for joining us. And again, have a good day.